have two, and also to have two case studies, two countries we are going to discuss later on. So I would like first to ask Katerina for some words of welcome. And after that, I will present you the program of this session. Katerina, if you may share your screen. And then after that, I will explore and describe a little bit more the content of our session today.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Didier, and welcome you all to this second webinar on the series of webinars that we have started in order to present to you all what is happening with the professional recognition and regulation in Europe, and the idea basically of networking among the national association, exchange opinions about what is the status of the profession and the problems that we're facing. So today, I'm going to present two issues before the presentation. One issue that we're starting and we're aiming for in IFLA Europe is to gather competencies and expertise of our members. Therefore, we have started and launched in IFLA Europe, as you are all of you aware, the members database. I'm going very briefly to show that because we're believing that is very important for IFLA Europe to for you to feel that. And the idea, as I said, is according to our vision, according to our goals, how we can promote our profession, how we can show our excellencies, and to ensure the high standards in profession and education. An idea that, of course, has started from 2014. You can find it here. You can see the link on the web page, and I really urge each one of you to get inside and fill the data. It's very important, is for you, basically, this database. And the idea was, as I said, to form a new working and networking approach inside IFLA Europe. It doesn't have to interfere with other professional database. It has to work transversely with other projects that we try to develop in IFLA Europe, but also to be, as I said, a source of different expertise so that we can better respond to all the requests that we're receiving from European Commission, Council of Europe, and other organizations. It is split, is very simple. It's split in three parts. The first part is basically consists of general questions regarding personal communication data, educational qualification, professional status. The second part is about your areas of knowledge and expertise. If you have any other networks that you are involved to, or if you are involved also and participate in working groups and activities of IFLA Europe. And the third part is about the members that they have special probably issues or requests or problems regarding the mobility, if they are not allowed, for example, to practice landscape architecture profession in another country. Just very simple two questions to say yes or no and why. So this is the thing. Please get inside. Is basically for you. The other thing that I would like to mention, and please, give me the opportunity to share this. You might see the word thing. In the DG Grow from the European Commission, we have been asked to map the profession again and again. And they gave us this mapping checklist that each member state should really fill. This is quite, I can say, a bit not complicated. For some association might be, from some other not. What actually they're asking, as you can see, is about the situation of the employment, the regulation of the profession in the sense of the particular directive, what is happening on the training level, the organization of the training, the access, the programs, the different characteristics of the programs and the contents, as well also the different teaching modalities or traineeship, and again, an assessment. And we're not going to go further on that, but we have decided, let's first start with two associations that are willing to help on that and fill this form in order to see if we're really able, if we have problems on feeling what is happening, because we're in a constant communication with DG Grow, and we really want to develop this. If it is impossible, then we will go further and ask for them a more clear, probably more clear answers, or we see how we can do that. So these are the two issues that I wanted, just since you are all here, to refer to. I don't want to take more of your time, just to tell you that it's very important what we're trying to do here today. A CTF, it is something that is really important, and we have to have as possible the document and the more final thing that is going to be an exceptional tool for us in the future. So thank you, Didier. I hope I didn't get a lot of your time. So
thank you so much, Katerina. And I think, so you understand this member database is quite important for all of us and for the profession and for the DG growth, because, and this is relates also directly to our next presenters. So this is the menu we are going to have for this webinar. We are going to talk about the co-creation process and the final proposal of the Common Training Framework. This is going to be presented just now after my short introduction by Jeroen de Vries from Le Nôtre and Innerland Project, and also our colleague Gintara Stauskis from the Innerland Project Coordinator from Vilnius Tech University. So that we will get the latest update of this Common Training Framework. And this is quite important because so it seems that 2023 is going to be a very important year for our profession related to this CTF. And then it will be followed by a feedback from the national associations. So we are asking you to put in the chat, include in the chat your questions. So we are supposed that you were able to read these documents distributed before, and we hope that you will have some feedback for the team there. After that, we are going to have two presentations from national associations. First, starting with the Germany and professional practice there, the current situation, to be done by Gwendoline Custers from BAK, delegate to IFLA Europe, and then Greece and the professional practice there, the current situation, done by Lena Athanasiadou from as FALA president and delegate to IFLA Europe. And after that, if we have time, we hope we have time for the discussion and how we're going to move forward. Now, I would like to ask Jeroen de Vries and Gintara Stauskis to present your latest update on the CTF. Thank you.
Thank you, Didier. Okay.
Welcome. I have to see. Do you see this now?
Yes, excellent.
Okay. And does it move?
Yes, also.
Okay. Well, Gintaras will start.
Yeah, it all works. Okay. Hello, colleagues. It's nice to be in your company again, this time remotely. Before that, we met in Helsinki in face and we discussed these issues. So as a title of our presentation says, we will look on a co-creation process, how Common Training Framework appeared and how it's moving now and what's the advancement and what are the future steps. Next, please. So you probably know that the actual activity working on the Common Training Framework started when we won this grant, European grant for education project, which is called Launching Innovation-Based Landscape Architecture Common Training Framework in Europe. It's a company of 5 universities across Europe and 2 NGO partners, one of which is IFLA Europe and the other one is Le Nôtre Institute. Next, please. So what is a Common Training Framework? Of course, we are working in a framework of European documents, European directives, and one of them is a Professional Qualifications Directive, or shorter PQD as we call it. And the 49A article sets that Common Training Framework means a common set of minimum knowledge, skills, and competencies that are necessary for the pursuit of a specific profession. So it says a minimum but of course we have in mind that we want to set this optimum level of knowledge and skills and competences that are necessary to practice the landscape architect's profession. Next, please. Well, if we look on the same requirements of the PQD, there is a structure given in the specific article, which says that common training framework by default should include these parts. So firstly, there should be the task of the profession should be described. Then the qualifications and competences should be listed. Then the level of the EQF, which is European Qualification Framework. So in our case, it's level 7, is master level, should be indicated. Then the question about the postgraduate traineeship should be addressed, which is professional development after academic studies. Next chapter is continuous professional development should be described, which is a upgrade of the qualification during the practicing the profession, and code of ethics and professional conduct also should be addressed. Why is it called training? Well, to our understanding, we see that the first step in becoming a professional is education, academic education, where you acquire academic qualification, then becomes professional practice, and we could also add to this equation also continuous professional development. And all in all, it becomes a lifelong learning, or we could call it also training. And then this word is also mentioned in the Professional Qualifications Directive, so we follow it. Next, please. Well, about the history, which is quite brief, the history of a common training framework. Of course, I should have mentioned at the very beginning that the spirit of common training, of creating a common training framework, was floating in IFLA Europe for many, many years, and many colleagues did great and outstanding work in that, setting the principles, the concepts, and we are just putting it all together and making use out of that, making one concise document, legal document, which could move forward. So we made use, of course, of IFLA Europe Professional Recognition Assistance Survey document. This was very helpful because we got lots of information from there. It was like a sort of a mapping of the profession, but of course in a different sense. Then in the first half of last year, 2021, we launched with the colleagues of the IFLA project, we launched a collaborative process, which meant that we invited, I think 3 or 4 times, we invited colleagues from different associations and landscape architects that are practicing in Europe, just to join, to connect to virtual meetings where we were presenting different aspects of a common training framework while it was being prepared. It was not still mature as it is now, but we discussed different aspects. So people from different countries and different associations took part, and as a result of these discussions, we also prepared an article which had many co-authors, and it was the article an EU Common Training Framework for the Landscape Architecture addressing the current needs of the society. It was printed, and you can find it on a ResearchGate. So, one moment. The first draft of the Common Training Framework was tested with our countries and our associations. Of course, first we addressed the associations that are those where the partners of the project in the land project come from. So in total, we tested 10. It was tested in 10 countries where the profession is regulated, where it is not regulated, and Spain is a special case where there is neither regulation nor recognition. Next, please. So there were interesting comments and very useful information coming as a feedback from this pilot testing. Well, what can we say? In general, we can say that in the countries where the profession is regulated, normally those countries meet all the requirements of the common training framework, with some slight adjustments in some articles where they maybe have to focus more and provide all information about the activities that the associations and governments are doing for the profession. Of course, in the countries that where the profession isn't regulated, there is a certain pathway which is indeed reachable. it's like a goal, and it's really reachable, because the education is, the segment of education is coordinated by IFLA, as we know, and all European schools follow these requirements, so it's not a big thing to reach that. And then we understood also that there are slight differences between the countries, between the programs, between the titles, and then we thought that the formulations should be very principled, very clear, very concise, but less going into details, because we are not willing to change this after half year or after 1 year. So for the same reason, we think that we should not mention in the main document the numbers of like ECTS hours and study years and similar. Next, please. We can say that IFLA Europe delegates, we had numerous opportunities to participate in different type of events that we launched during the preparation of the common training framework, and 15 delegates were co-authors of the publication that I mentioned, and then 29 European delegates participated in that half-year-long co-creation process of the first draft. And it was a couple of times it was presented to IFLA and to IFLA Europe delegates, and as you remember, this year in October it was presented to IFLA Europe delegates as a final, so-called final draft of the common training framework. So, Ron, could you please take over?
Yes. Well, apart from IFLA Europe, also IFLA was involved in this process, and also the school contact persons, they took part in this co-creation. And the content of the CTF was discussed twice in the IFLA conferences last year and this year, also in Ljubljana. And there was an extensive discussion of the heads of schools in Ljubljana about this updated draft after the testing. It was voted on in the IFLA's General Assembly. This was the text that you have received now. And the General Assembly of IFLA first approved the principles. So this was all the schools together. And in Ljubljana, they voted positively on the final draft after this discussion with heads of schools. And they made some adjustments that are now included in the draft that you have received, because there was some wordings that they would like to have different. And IFLA is this Association of Landscape Architecture Schools in Europe. So in the CTF, there are now 4 sections. There's 1 section, or 3 sections actually, and 1 appendix. There's an introduction explaining about it. Then there are some articles on education. You have read these, I think. And there are articles about professional practice. And the appendix we made because we need a very concise and general CTF, which can last for a long time. And then this appendix contains details and further advice that can be used by IFLA's guidance and IFLA Europe recognition documents. And what became clear from the testing is that we should not say, well, it should be 8 hours of continuous education, or 10 hours or 20, those kinds of things. So we moved preferably all these details to the appendix in order to have a very solid building for the CTF. And you can see here, and I think you read it all by now, the different articles, and we will not explain at this moment all the different articles in it, but it's about the scope, the tasks. We took the IFLA World definition for that. Then there are the educational requirements with the competences. And then there are more regulatory articles about the registration and the compliance with the Code of Professional Standards and so on. So what we now have, we have a very concise and tested draft, and which is also produced in collaboration with you all. After we get your feedback before the 15th of December, we will make a final version. And there will be a working group for linking up with the European Commission after we agreed on the content. So if the CTF is established within the EU, or without, it is already a basis for the recognition, the professional recognition by IFLA and the ECLA's guidance. And it will be a benchmark for landscape architecture education. And if on the midterm run it's successfully accomplished and established by the EU, landscape architecture will be a regulated profession, just like architects and doctors and nurses and so on, and ski instructors. So why do we want this recognition? That's important for the mobility and the movement and being able to work in all the different countries. And it also helps to promote our profession and ensure higher standards of the profession. And the question was often, well, if there's CTF, does every country need to comply? No, there is in each member state can decide for itself if it adopts it or not. And if you adopt it, of course, you will be in this regulated domain, but you do not need to adopt it. Well, if you have any more questions, Gintaras and me will do our best to answer these. So.
Thank you, Jeroen. Thank you, Gintaras. I think it's very clear. We have 3 questions in the chat. Maybe Gintaras, you can reply, or you wanted to reply to these first questions. It relates to the to the former bachelors, and they don't without a master, etc. Maybe you can, Gintaras, you can explain or elaborate on that.
Yeah, I can just say how it might look. Well, as an example, we know how it was happening when architects got the automatic recognition. So there was some period of time set when people had to apply with all the documents for getting that, for example, 2 or 3 or other number of years. And the other thing is that it's also indicated in the Professional Qualifications Directive that people who are practicing already, they could achieve the required level in 2 ways. There might be formal education, where they might take the master program, for example, or they might collect these competences and these credits during the continuous professional development. There is also the line which is possible. So during some years, if you collect the needed credits or on the topics that are taught in the master, so this would also be possible. It's how I imagine it. Might be, of course, different versions, and we could still think about these specific cases, which is also very important to address people who are already practicing in the profession for many years. Yes.
Yeah, maybe I can explain how it was in the Netherlands before the regulation. Because I was already a recognized landscape architect, and then this new law came into being. And of course, there's always a transition period and also a transition mechanism for that. So if it's already regulated and you are in the register in your country, well, this doesn't change anything. And if it's newly installed, I think each member state will have to define a transition mechanism, because they cannot just say, well, people are already practicing, they have to go to school again. So in my experience is that it's up to the member states how to organize it, but it's not that everybody has to go back to school for this.
Thank you, Jeroen. I think it's clear. There is something, or there is a question from Katinka also about Bulgaria and the relationship with ECLAS. I don't know if you can elaborate on this.
Well, it's not important whether ECLAS members or not. That's if a country decides to adopt the CTF after a regulation, then it can state for itself, it has to define its own standards in accordance with this. And in some countries, it works that a number of schools or a pathway is defined in which they install a register and say, well, okay, this is according to the standards, and if you have this education, or they can say, well, there's no school at all. Suppose there's no school at all, then they can install a national exam for it. So it's then up to the countries. It's not said that EU will say, well, it has to be like this or this. Every country has to define it. But of course, the benchmark or the basis is the content of the competences and the other things in the CTF.
Excellent. Thank you. I hope that the questions are now answered. Do we have more questions from the attendees? About Gwendolyn. Gwendolyn just wrote, Germany is missing the description of construction technical planning skills in the open space planning section. Is there a reason why these three terms is not written down or not included in CTF?
Well, it should be, it's in landscape design. And then that contains this project implementation and the other things. When we had a more detailed version, this was all explained in implementation, supervising, and the other things. And in the general version, it's less detailed expressed. Maybe I can go to this because it's in article
5.
Article 2. No?
Article 2, there's something here. This is more about the tasks. So they plan and design, and this design part, that should include the construction. And then if we go to the fields of knowledge, this is about the development. This is planning and design versus, and then here's this part about the materials, both living and inert. So this is about the use of the materials, but it does not say anything about contracting or supervising or so on. So if you think that's important, well, maybe you should make a note on this and we can see whether it should be included or not. Yeah, thank you.
I had exactly similar comments from Romanian schools.
Okay, yeah.
So maybe it is useful.
Yeah.
So then you should try to include it in the document.
I would like to explain why Germany think it's necessary to put it in, because we think if you use the term design, people might think, especially the European ministries might think it is only about drawing. And if you use our profession is only about drawing and doing artificial work. And if you use construction and technical planning, project management, terms like that, it's more clear that we are not only designers, but also builders, and we need technical experience, and know-how to do that.
Because this is not, because this point 9 is the materials, both living and inert, including native and vegetation, and then the techniques and construction standards for project implementation. And here it is, project implementation includes this construction. And but you would like to have the word construction in it here also.
Not only this, but it was also discussion about that the students have to learn how to do the legal, how you say, documentation. I mean, when you go to construction, you pass over the conceptual part and everything, and you go in legal.
Okay.
Legal stuff, how you do that legal documentation, which is not clear. I mean, it's not necessarily the same with the conceptual one.
Yeah.
I mean, that was a comment from the Romanian schools.
Okay. Yeah.
Thank you. I was wondering if it also relates to procurement or not. Maybe this is another point. So there is a question from Sweden, from Linus Fredriksson, related to the Articles 7 and 9. How will this be managed in practice? Yes, in reference to quality of continuous education courses. Maybe you can check this question.
So
is it
first
up to
about
the national?
Yeah.
Yes. So the question is, How will this be managed in practice in reference to quality of continuous education courses and controlling whether or not continuous education requirements have been met by registered landscape architects? Is it up to national associations to define how this will be implemented or not?
Yeah, this is already the case. If you look at the regulated, the countries where it is regulated, and also for the architects, you can see that every country has a different way of organizing this. For instance, in the Netherlands, it's quite open. You just have to upload your stuff in the register and show what you've done. And there are no direct requirements what you should have done. In other countries, there is a specific offer of continuous professional development, and that that should be followed for certain points. So it's a bit different in different countries, and that's why we do not want to regulate it on a European level. So it's not so specially defined in this CTF. Because it's up to the different countries. But maybe Gintaras, you can add something to this.
I think we will elaborate on this a bit in our project outputs, and then we can see if we need to, in some way, have it in the appendix, for example, a bit detailing on a common training framework. As we all know, for public servants, there are rules that just certified providers could provide this CPD training, and for the others, for example, for architects in Lithuania, it is a bit more conservative. So the list of topics is approved by the ministry, and then all private service providers or teaching service providers, they could offer their themes, but they should be in certain framework of topics addressed.
Yeah. So what you can see is that it's different. So we will give an advice on that also in the Innoland documentation, but we're not going to prescribe this in the core CTF.
Excellent. Thank you so much. Do we have more questions about Katinka again? What about investment process to be included, as well maintenance of green, so the maintenance dimension of green areas. And she mentioned also, Katinka mentioned also the procurement dimension.
Yeah.
I think this is more related to the knowledge of landscape architects, right? So yes, the fields of knowledge.
Yeah, so it's practical planning, management, design principles and skills. So that should be going there, I think.
Katinka, maybe you can explain a little bit what you...
Hello, I'm sorry, my video doesn't work.
That's fine.
So, okay. But you hear me.
Yes.
When I discussed with my colleagues, many of our colleagues, landscape architects, work on maintenance of green areas. Nevertheless, in some public institutions as municipalities or private objects. So in education, the maintenance of such kind of areas is important for us. So it could be in management principles, part of management. That maintenance, first one, and the investment process. It's all the process of. It's more important for public investors and. But not only, for private too, all the landscape architects as well as other professionals could be well informed from the beginning of investment idea, investment project. Then if it is necessary, environmental impact assessment and later construction.
Okay.
and so on, till maintenance and monitoring of the as a final of whole investment process.
Thank you, Katinka. So clear, no, for Gintaras and Jeroen?
Yeah, normally,
I'm not quite sure about what you mean by the word investment, because investment is what it costs to make sure it is implemented. And do you mean with investment also the return on investment, or because we did not think of that so much?
Investment process, I'm not sure how it is in I translated literally from Bulgarian to English.
So,
it is the investor, it might be a public institution.
You mean the commissioner?
Start the process.
Okay.
Who start the process, and even there is a tender procurement process, and how to
manage
to start that procurement, and then project, and then who is responsible for that project to be selected and approved, and then to start construction, and who is responsible for all the signs from the municipality, from the project designers, from some state organization as fire and so on, and traffic authorities, and so on. All that project process concerning establishment of any project, bigger project than a small private one.
Okay.
Yeah, if I compare to the Netherlands situation, this is mostly part of the post academic traineeship, because after academic, well, your competences, there's in the Netherlands, for instance, and also in other countries, there is a period of 2 years in which the graduates work under the supervision of a registered landscape architect, and this also goes for the architects and the urban planners and so on. And the modules in this post traineeship, they relate with this client work and this whole process, because this is quite difficult really to integrate into an academic situation. So normally it's not in that part, but it's in the post traineeship.
I do agree, Jörn, what you said. We have this very clear stated for architects in Romania. So the traineeship has to reach certain point to complete the education, and it's clearly stated. Maybe the document our document can have a sort of half phrases about the internship. That the internship should be somehow regulated as content. It's for architects, because if the internship is just about going and, I don't know, supervising the workers in the field or drawing in an office, actually it's not completing your stuff.
No.
So maybe this internship should be itself regulated afterwards.
Yeah.
I don't know, maybe, I don't know. But for the architect, it's quite clearly regulated, the internship, what it has to comprise.
Okay, thank you so much. So if you still have questions, you can keep it for later for the discussion we are going to have. Now I would like to move on in the program we have, and we will have 2 presentations from 2 special cases, if I may say, two national associations. So we have first Germany, and after Germany, we will have Greece. Let's start with Germany and Gwendolyn. Gwendolyn, if you can share your screen and present the professional situation in Germany. Yes, excellent. Thank you. So we are changing now, moving from the CTF, and now we go to the real profession. Gwendolyn?
Yes, I'm there. I'm just, I have to get rid of your lovely faces to see the presentation.
Oh, no.
Okay. That's not as easy as I thought. There you go. Okay.
If you make full screen, that would be nice. Then
You don't see full screen yet, do you?
no.
How about that?
Yes, that's good.
That's okay.
Excellent. Yes, perfect. Thank you.
Yes, hello again, everyone. Lovely speaking to you about organizational structures of landscape architecture in Germany. First of all, of course, you know the BAK, or maybe you have heard of the BAK and the BDLA, and that are obviously the major associations we have in Germany of landscape architects. But apart from these organizations, there are lots and lots of others where landscape architects are part of. We have the SRL, we have the IFR, we have the DASL, all organizations where mainly spatial planners, regional planners, landscape planners, or environmental planners are part of and are a member. And also we have Bundesverband für Garten- und Landschaftsbau, which is an association where the practitioners are members of and organize themselves and do lots and lots of great work. That means architects, landscape architects are everywhere in Germany. But today I want to talk more about the BDLA and the BAK and how these two organizations work together. I start with the BDLA. It's an association of German landscape architects, and it was founded in 1913, so it's pretty old, and refounded after the war in 1948 with 80 members. The admission to IFLA was in 1954, and in 1990, the BDLA was the founding member of the IFLA. In 2018, the status of the BDLA changed in the IFLA world. It changed from being a member to the observer status. And at the moment, the BDLA has 1,300 members, and they are all landscape architects. This is different in the BAK because the BAK is not an association, but a chamber. And it's a chamber not only of landscape architects, but also of interior architects, architects and special planners. And the BAK was founded in 1969, and it was founded by 6 out of 16 state chambers. And it took another couple of years, you see, until 1991, so that all the other 10 states, Germany has 16 federal states, it took another couple of years to get the other 10 chambers to join into the BAK. In 1990, the BAK was a founding member of the Architects Council of Europe. And in 2002, it became a member of the International Union of Architects. It is obviously also a member of the European Council of Interior Architects and Spatial Planners. And since 2018, the BAK is a member of IFLA World and IFLA Europe and took the part of the BDLA from that time onwards. At the moment, we have 183,000 members in total in the BAK, and of which are 8,300 landscape architects. I already talked to you about the federal state system of Germany. You know it, or at least you know it by now. We have obviously a national level, and we have a state level. And you have, if you want to organize something for our profession, you always have to work in between this level, state and national level. And the BAK and the BDA are very big associations and chambers, so that means they both work on a national level and on a state level. The current president on the national level for the BAK is a landscape architect. That's pretty new. Andrea Gebhardt took that role last year. And she is supported by a head office in Berlin with about 23 employed officers, plus a liaison office in Brussels with 2 to 3 employed officers. On the other hand, the BDLA has a president as well, and that's Stefan Lenzen. You might know him. And he is supported by a head office in Berlin as well, with 9 employed officers. On the state level, although we have 16 states in Germany, the BDLA only has 13 state groups, and these state groups as well have chairmen and chairwomen and boards. In the BAK, we have 16 state chambers, for each state 1. That means we have 16 presidents, 16 boards, and 16 representative assemblies. To give you some numbers, I can give you the numbers of my federal state, and we have obviously 1 president. On our board, there are 13 members, and we just had the election yesterday. We have 70 representatives in our representative assemblies. And obviously, these are not only landscape architects on the board and in the assembly, but they are all planning professions together. Having 16 states means we have 16 laws which define rules how to become a member of the BAK. On this map, you see all our the 16 different states of Germany. And I want to show you now how you manage to become a landscape architect in Germany. And that's a 2-step system, really. So first of all, you study at a university. We have 14 universities in Germany in about 13 states. And if you study in the university and you finish, you have a name. And the name is regional planner, spatial planner, landscape or open space planner, landscape designer, environmental planner, and thousands of other titles. That's at the end of your study. And then you need the step 2 to call yourself a landscape architect, as landscape architect is a protected term. And that's and we have an association which makes sure that step 2 will work out fine for you. And this association is called ASAP. It's an accreditation association for study programs in architecture and planning, not only for landscape architecture, but also for architects, interior architects, and spatial planners. And the BDLA and the BAK are members of the ASAP, and also 15 other associations. The ASAP, the universities apply for accreditation with ASAP. And if the accreditation has taken place, then you can be sure, if you study at that university, that step 2 will work out for you just fine, that you can get the name landscape architect. Step 2 works out this way. You got your diploma, master, whatever, and you got 2 years of practice, and then you apply for becoming a member in your chamber. In the chamber you have to apply to is where you live and work. And then you have to, well, not you personally, but the chambers check with their laws if your way of work and if your studies are apply with the chamber law. And if it does, then you become a member, and then you can call yourself a landscape architect. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, Gwendolyn. Thank you. I think it's very well, nice, structured in this federal state, and it gives a very nice overview of all these, all these steps to become a professional. But yes, this is it makes the difference between Germany and Greece, because in Germany the title of landscape architect is protected. And maybe we can listen now to Lena and discuss and see what is the situation in Greece. So thank you, Gwendolyn.
Thank
Lena?
you, Gwendolyn, for making me feel so nice for presenting. Greece, after you, I have some numbers I put down. You said 8,300 architects, landscape architects. I can't imagine how many architects you have. And I just Googled that Germany has 83 million people. So presumably if Greece has 10 million people, then we needed to have about 1,000 landscape architects. We still have only about 250 that have studied landscape architecture, but IFLA has far less number than that. So these are the stats for me, and this is quite important. I'm just going to begin by saying thank you, Didier, for the special invitation of presenting here. Also, IFLA, which is not an association in Germany. Landscape architecture in Greece is not recognized, is not regulated, is not protected. And there are fragments of recognition only scattered with the profession, within the professional rights of engineers, agriculturists, and foresters. And to recognize the profession in Greece, presumably as in other countries, you have to come under a chamber of professional rights. And when people finish an undergrad course, they can be registered to get a professional right. Agriculturists register under the geotechnical chamber in Greece, which is big, but the huge chamber in Greece is the technical chamber, where you get all the engineers. And people from there, as I said, they have to have an undergrad degree to register in that, and there is no undergrad course of landscape architecture in Greece that can lead to people being registered in the chamber to have professional rights.
Lena, sorry to interrupt you. Do we have an echo in with your voice? Maybe you can check the mic. That would be very helpful. We have some problems to understand you.
Okay. I can talk via my phone, I guess, and you can't hear me now, can you?
We can hear you, yes.
Is it better now?
Can you speak again, please?
Is it better now?
Yes.
No, it's not actually.
No, depending on.
Okay, let me try something.
Yes.
Sorry. Okay, so I'm going to join from my phone and I'll talk from there.
Okay.
I'll be there, I guess, in a minute.
So maybe you can switch the mic on your computer, or with your headphones. I think it could be also a solution.
Just a minute.
It's fine. In the meantime, yes.
Yes, sorry for that. Just to figure out what's happening. You're going to have some questions.
That's fine. That's fine. No, I forgot to inform you that the Innerland final conference, we forgot to mention it. It's going to take place on the 17th of March, 2023 in Brussels, where everyone is welcome, of course. So this will be on the 17th of March the final presentation of the results of the CTF. So that would be a nice, if you have time, of course, it would be a nice occasion to be live with all of us in the presentation of the final results. So yes, in Brussels, all the final outcomes of the inner land. Brussels is in Belgium, Jeroen. As long as we are waiting for Lena, that's good. Do we have maybe 1 or 2 questions for Gwendolyn? So oh, I know Gwendolyn is quite sick. Sorry, Gwendolyn. This was so nice. It's so nice that you were able to do it. Maybe we have 1 or 2 questions for Gwendolyn.
I'll be there in 2 minutes.
Okay. If not, do we have questions? No. So it seems that it's a kind of proportion, huh? So you have the population, 83 million inhabitants, and then you have 8,300 landscape architects, huh? 10%, or 1%, sorry, 1% of the population. It's an interesting figure. There is a remark also from Danyan. You, as a practitioner, as landscape architect in the Netherlands, I found the professional landscape architect is weaker than the professional architecture. It's not very well informed for the new practitioner. Maybe this is something we have to promote also more. For instance, the professional traineeship is not well known to the master students, and after graduation, it's hard to find the resources that would provide guidance, like how to make technical drawings.
Yeah, maybe I can explain a bit, because I'm working at the architecture office as the only landscape designer. So I basically have to figure out everything by myself. So then I found it quite difficult because a lot of things were not really being told at the school, and the academies, you know, like university for master programs somehow are very much research oriented, but in the work it's a lot about really realizing the project. So there's different dimension, and I know that landscape architecture is a very broad discipline, and that's covers so many like different kind of knowledge. But now I think the problem is that you cannot really learn everything like at school, so you have to learn a lot when you start working. But then at work, a lot of things are basically what I found is that you're learning by like following what has done before. You just like see how they made the technical drawings, how they would do the pavement like this, but you cannot really have this kind of like courses where you can follow. Maybe you will gain some knowledge in that. Also, someone mentioned about the contract making. You know, nobody is telling you like a landscape designer how to make a contract. So you have to also assess the resource, maybe Google online, you know, and see what the contract has been laid out. So that's more like the existing situation. So I think maybe this could be a interesting discussion to see what could make this knowledge more accessible, and and the work could be a supplement for the practitioners in practice. Yeah.
Thank you. I think Katerina would like to react on that. Katerina, yes.
Actually, I didn't want to react exactly to that, because I think Jeroen answers on this. I mean, everyone that finishes university do not expect on the professional practice to know everything. You have to learn step by step. So yes, I would like to ask Gwendolyn something, if you can answer this, because I see both BDLA and BIACA has a long history. Probably you were not born at the time, not probably, for sure you were not born. So I would like to ask you, as at the previous time, the French Association presented to us, of course it's much more recent, the process on the regulation. If you know about from the history, what was needed for the profession of landscape architects to be regulated. For example, the friends that were presenting that they went to the parliament and they had to describe very clearly the tasks of landscape architects, and then they had an issue about not to call them landscape architects, basically because it was a conflict with the architects, and they had to change the name to landscape, I don't know, paysagist concepteur. If you can answer this, or not really, yes. Anyway, this would have been a good feedback, basically, for the association that they do not have done this process, at least to know the basic steps that are needed. Some of us, they know already that definitely education is, you know, to have a bachelor degree. If you don't have a bachelor degree, it's impossible to carry on after that. But anyway, if you have any ideas to say something about that, I would appreciate it.
Will
maybe
be
life
nice, yeah.
difficult a bit. It's okay if you have, yes.
Well, to give also maybe motivation also for the nationalities. Yes.
In the preparation of this speech, I tried to figure out when the landscape architects became part of the chamber, but the chamber didn't know. So
okay.
Obviously they were all, as we have 16 different chambers, it was all a different way. Maybe I can't really, I don't know when the landscape architects became part of that big family, but I know that, or if they have been part of it from the beginning, but I know that the spatial planners haven't, so they had to fight for becoming a member of the chamber.
Okay.
Am I the only one who thinks that's funny? This anyway, and well, they've done it, and by now in every chamber the spatial planners are part of. And how did they do it? I don't know. I can't say anything to that. It's just
it's okay.
Talking. It's talking, but I don't know. Sorry.
No, it's okay. We can elaborate further in the future also workshops on that. Yeah,
I can talk now. It's Lena is joining again. I can talk confirm about the spatial planners, because in the 80s they were not included in the chamber, and they did around 20 years lobbying to get there and to be able to enter and recognized by the chamber. Yes, so they started the process in the 90s. So it takes some time to get there. And it was a lot of lobbying, of course. I hope that Lena is back. Lena, are you there? No? Still not there?
Meanwhile, can I raise another question about the common training framework? I raised it in written, but I had no feedback. It's not necessarily very important, but as we waiting for Lena, I don't know in how many countries it's clearly statuted in your education laws that there are two kinds of master degrees: professional master and scientific master. Because I think this is important, that I think we do refer in this document to the professional master, because the scientific master is usually more interdisciplinary and open towards other disciplines, and it's leading to PhD. And that's also a point that the professional master can be integrated in a program, like without bachelor diploma, just you have 3+2 integrated. And one of our schools comment on this, the architecture school actually commented on this. How would you define this master? Because the master in many schools should be seen as interdisciplinary, or we do refer to a master in landscape architecture, so it's a professional master.
Yeah.
And it's Romania, the only country where these two masters are quite clearly defined as separately in the law? Because I knew it's an European standard. Can you confirm me if in your countries it's the difference clearly stated or not?
It's also different in the Netherlands, where we have Academy of Arts, we have Technical University, Life Science, and people can opt, for instance, at Wageningen, they can opt for a more professional stream or a more academic research-oriented stream, but it's still the same diploma. But,
so with a professional master in the Netherlands, you could go for a PhD?
Yeah, I think everybody can go for a PhD.
No, for us, it's professional master. It's more practical oriented, and you do not go for a PhD with it. The scientific master is more research oriented, and you can go for a PhD with it.
Well, in the Netherlands, you can go also with a bachelor for a PhD, but well, that's.
Oh,
yeah, yeah.
So you have level 6 and then directly level 8, and level 7 you can skip it.
Yeah.
Good in Netherlands. Can I move there?
Okay, fine. Now we have Lena with us again. Lena, maybe you can jump into the discussion again. Yes, and then continue your presentation. Thank you.
Okay. So
Sound is much better.
Can you see my screen? Didier, can you see my screen?
No, I cannot see your screen at the moment.
Didier, can you please share my presentation? I have many problems, I guess, today.
Okay, okay.
Happened to me before.
Okay.
I changed. Yes.
You had to change your computer? Or?
I can't share screen. Can you share my presentation?
Yeah, I will share it with you.
Thank you so much. Sorry for this, guys.
No, that's fine. Wait a moment.
I'm gonna be short, I guess.
Wait 5 seconds. So it is this one. And tell me when you have to next slide, etc. Okay?
Okay, I can't see the screen, but I'll have my other computer. So I'm just gonna, you tell me when you change the slide. We're on slide 1, right? This is very difficult.
So
now,
this is the slide where with the recognized professions in Greece usually come under a chamber of professional rights.
Yeah, so if you hear me, as I said, you have to have a chamber and then you can change the slide, Didier. So you can probably see the timeline now, right?
Yes, correct.
It's a very thin timeline in a way that in 1964 we had the School of Agriculture in Thessaloniki, Aristotle University of Thessaloniki, doing one course in landscape architecture, and then we had in 1974 School of Architecture. Probably the same model goes to the big technical university in Athens, and then in 1980 we have the foundation of IFLA. And then in 1995, we had a technical university in Greece. The first one who had actually was 3.5 years of an undergrad study in floriculture and landscape architecture. And then we had another technical university in 2005, first in Greece to teach landscape architecture in 3.5 years. Can you hear me speaking?
Everything is fine. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. A big step though was actually in 2003, we had the first joint postgraduate program of studies in landscape architecture. And that was School of Architecture, School of Agriculture. It was a 2 years master's. And then we also had a 2 years master's in the Agricultural University of Athens. So to sum up, we had 2 undergrad departments, but that was in technical institutions, and we had no undergraduate course in higher university, and we have 2 MLAs. The sad thing is that in 2013, both departments of the technical university were stopped. So we don't have any undergrads now in landscape architecture. Please change the slide.
Yes.
We also have the ELC that was formed in Florence in 2000 and was ratified in Greece 10 years later. And to be really, very honest about it, this delay underlined in Greece the puzzlement towards its implementation. And it was directly appointed to the disciplines of spatial and urban planning. So they are kind of responsible for the implementation of the European Landscape Convention, since there is no official protected name of a landscape architect. But that was not really, the appointment was not really by having a specific target, but it was rather like it was forced and fragmented because somebody had to take over the implementation of the European Landscape Convention. Next slide, please. So in charge of the implementation is the Ministry of Environment and Energy and the Department of National Spatial Planning. And IFLA is urging authorities involved to include landscape architects to all the procedures mentioned in the ELC. Next slide, please. We have a presidential decree in 2018 that was on the regulation of the professional rights of the engineers. And in Article 4, we have landscape analysis and design and landscape architectural projects appointed to architect engineers. We also have topographers doing landscape architecture projects. And we also have spatial and urban planners doing landscape design and landscape architectural project without, though, it's not very clear on the architect engineers, but the topographers and the spatial and urban planners can't do planting designs. And as IFLA, we sort of went to court on this, but we ended up with probably nothing. We got a total zero about our protest on why these people can have all of the all of our actually profession. Next slide, please, Didier. Thank you so much for this. So what is happening about landscape architecture practice in Greece? The architect engineers and the topographers and the spatial planners can officially practice landscape architecture just by their first degree. So they don't have to do an MLA in landscape architecture. And they can't do, not they can do, they can't do planting designs. The agriculturists, on the other hand, do the planting and irrigation designs, and nobody else can do planting and irrigation designs if you're not an agriculturist. And the architect engineers, spatial and urban planners, agriculturists, topographers, biologists, and everybody who has an MLA in landscape architecture can kind of practice landscape architecture, but only the engineers are officially entitled to do so. So this is the pie, landscape architecture project in Greece. Engineers get most of it, and then you get the agrics doing the soft material. Next slide, please, Didier. So if we like step out of this official framework, what we do as landscape architects in Greece. Those of us who, for example, I'm an agriculturist and I have an MLA and I'm like the IFLA president, or somebody who's an architect and has an MLA and is also a landscape architect. We do a small amount of gardens, and agrics do most of them. We do a lot of private residential landscape design. We do a lot of hotel and touristic accommodation landscape design, and we do some parks also. We're included in parks. We do municipal landscape design and planning, and we're part of draft studies as part of interdisciplinary teams, which are probably, most of them are done by engineers. And we are kind of slowly being included in discussions on urban open space design. If asked by architects also, we are, as landscape architects, part of a team of an architectural competition, even if this is entirely for an open space. So architects can design any kind of open space without really having to have a landscape architect on it. And final slide, I think, no, The next slide, please. So this is like a very honest presentation. I'm glad it's just us delegates on this. So what are landscape architects called in Greece? We're called gardeners a lot, garden architects, ecological designers, designers of an environment, and public in Greece completely ignores the big scale and almost completely the contribution of landscape architects to the design of urban open spaces. And how we want to proceed as follows. We're actually only about 45 active members, and we don't have all the landscape architects in Greece with us, right? Because I said we have about 200, 250 landscape architects who have an MLA. Yeah, I'm going to answer to that actually, Michael. That's very interesting. So the way to go, create an undergraduate course in landscape architecture. That is the traditional way to go. But since I'm in academia and I see that, for example, now even the polytechnic schools all over the world join together forces, and you get to choose courses from any subject. For example, you get to choose courses from the topography department or the architect department, or so you get a mixed degree. So how are we about to stand out and say landscape architecture, since academia is starting to resume itself under mixed degrees? Well, maybe this is a good thing. Maybe we can explore that also. We have also to examine, if there was an undergraduate program, which chamber of professional rights would get the profession, because you can't have it in both chambers. And of course, we have to do something easy peasy. We have to change the laws. We have a frame there that is very optimistic because we have EU law, and EU law can help us in Greece. And the way to go short term is to put pressure on the state to include landscape architects in interdisciplinary programs and schemes, put pressure on the state to define the profession, because in Greece there is no official definition, of course, like a description of a profession. What is a landscape architect? Put pressure on the state to define the phrase landscape architecture study. This is a good step for us, because in the professional rights of the engineers, they say topographers, landscape architects, spatial planners can do landscape architecture studies without there being a definition of what a landscape architecture study is. And all of the above with the aid of IFLA Europe. Thank you very much for your time. I don't know if it was too gloomy, but I guess we can have a discussion on it.
Excellent. Thank you, Lena. Thank you so much for your very clear and very honest presentation. It reflects, apparently, there are a lot of comments in the chat, also situations in Poland, I can see. And so it's very nice to have this exchange. You know, this is not by mistake that I was putting you the two extreme.
I know.
So that you can be inspired both and also find and think about solutions. Yes. So the floor is yours. I see some colleagues, they have to leave, but maybe we can stay all together another 5 minutes. Then we have some comments, and for sure, it's simply a process. Maybe, Lena, you will get a lot of help from the CTF, for sure. If CTF is accepted and adopted on the European level, then you can refer that the profession can be recognized also in Greece. This is what my understanding. Do we have some reactions or questions? Or reactions on Lena's presentation?
I want to say about Michael's comment. It's very funny, actually. Yes, we do employ the landscape architects from abroad to do designs here, like the Ellinikon project, right? Which was the biggest park we have now, but we do have landscape architects from Greece being involved in that. I think the main issue with landscape architecture is the fragmentation of the profession, because many, like the engineers, get the hard material, and the hortics or the agrics get the soft material, and that is completely wrong. That is completely wrong for me.
Mm-hmm.
Poland, yes, Poland, probably, Michael, we have the same problem. Okay.
There was also something from Michael. Michael, maybe you can explain what you mentioned there. Michael, are you there? Yes.
Yeah, hi there. I'm here. I mean,
Oh.
I suppose to an extent it is similar. Can you hear me? Do I have
Yes,
the
please.
mic on?
Yeah.
Yeah. So you know, again, you know, by law, let's say we don't have any professional recognition. I mean, no, sorry, not any, because probably some of my colleagues here who are actually academics, they do largely disagree. But the law basically it kind of gives the we could translate it as kind of some sort of professional license to professions like architects, engineers, like, you know, civil engineers, and whatnot. And I think even environmental engineers, but there's nothing like that for landscape architects. And to a few years back, we had an opportunity, let's say, to be trained in a kind of engineering, let's say, courses. So, for example, I was trained under an engineering, let's say, kind of program. But then a few years later, a new act came into force, and the kind of engineering, the title of engineering in landscape architecture was kind of removed, and now we receive, let's say, a title of engineer, but the landscape architecture basically is almost like is like an addition to it. We know that we finished an engineering course in landscape architecture, but the title is not, you know, let's say, engineer in landscape architecture, if that makes sense. So that's one thing. And kind of regarding this recognition, because there's this because we don't have this professional license to work independently, even on projects which are about the site planning, let's say, or a site plan is part of a development, let's say, by law, and it has to be delivered through the planning process by a qualified professional, and in law in Poland, a landscape architect is not considered basically as a qualified professional. So it either has to be or it can be produced by a landscape architect, but it has to be undesigned by an architect, or it will be basically produced by an architect. So we do contribute, and as I think, as Lina said, you know, we very often are kind of invited to multidisciplinary teams to contribute from the landscape perspective, or kind of basically binding or coordinating this kind of transition between kind of planning or kind of space planning, ecology, and obviously kind of landscape design. What is very positive, or is a positive sign, is that nowadays, because of kind of our activity, I think also as an organization, I mean SAC here, and probably other organizations as well. Nowadays, when there are public, for example, competitions or tenders, and landscape design is basically is part of the development, there is always a requirement that within the kind of design team, there has to be a landscape architect. Okay. So that's a few words from me.
Excellent. Thank you. Thank you, Michael. Yes, Michael Oldham, I was mentioning you also because of the European Landscape Convention. So you wrote something in the chat about the respect or not respect of the European landscape. Yes, please.
Well, it was just a reminder, really, that the conference of the European Landscape Convention, when it received a paper from us on professional recognition, made a declaration to encourage all states members, parties of the European Landscape Convention, and that's 40 out of 46, to encourage them to recognise the profession both nationally and internationally, and also at the same time encouraged multidisciplinary approach to landscape wherever. But generally speaking, I mean, our biggest problem has always been architects. But it's if you look at Europe, there are more architects in Europe than there are people living in Strasbourg. There's 500,000 architects living in Europe, and our profession at its best numbers about 20,000. And in Greece, where there are somewhere between 250 and 300 landscape architects, only 100 or so belong to the professional association. So in Greece, as Lena knows, it's a young profession that is actually held back by the numbers as part of anything, really. So, but I think what Mikhail said from Poland is encouraging insofar as, I mean, I've seen over the last 30 years more and more appreciation of what landscape architects do, and more need to employ landscape architects, and more recognition that actually what, if you like, our competitors are doing is not very good, not very helpful. Working against things like biodiversity, they're not looking at solutions which are actually economic, efficient, nature-based solutions and things like that. So I would be encouraged, and I think the work that you're doing with the CTF is very encouraging.
Mm-hmm.
Very, very, very encouraging.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Michael. Do we have more reactions or questions or on the previous presentations or in general on the CTF?
I just want to say, just for a final comment on my behalf, many thanks to Michael for trying to help us here in Greece. And he just told me something in the GA in Helsinki that sort of, hit me against the wall. He said, don't try to take professional rights from other professions, but rather try to make yourself visible enough, at least at the beginning, to be included in interdisciplinary teams. So I think that is the way to go with little steps. Like in Greece, we have to press the state to define what a landscape architecture study is, or to be included in interdisciplinary teams. And I think interdisciplinary is the way to go mainly. So I don't think we'll ever be able to get professional rights from engineers. So I'm not sure that's the way to go. Yeah, no, not a chance.
Mm-hmm. Very nice. Yeah, that's really true. Thank you, Lena. Thank you for this. Do we have more remarks or questions on this? So for the next, because now we are almost at the end of our meeting or webinar, I would like to, so our plan would be then the next months, there will be the final version. So the development of the final version of the CTF with the presentation in March. I would propose to have our next webinar in April. So after the adoption, or so to speak, the presentation of the final version of the CTF, and then again exchange experience of 2 case studies or 2 national associations, and then let's try to work on the way how to make our profession better in that sense, that and especially more visible and more more recognized in that sense. Yes. So Katerina, you would like to say something? Yes, please.
Just to say something, as I was hearing everyone, what we're trying here in IFLA Europe, apart from this webinar, and we have what we did in the previous year, having webinars on several subjects, exhibitions, whatever, just to show what landscape architects can do. This is the other way. Of course, here we're presenting from the legal way and how this can be done. But I really urge all national associations to show exactly what has been stated by previously, that anyhow, we have to present ourselves, we have to be visible, we have to make people aware what is landscape architecture and the value of landscape. I think this is very important, because starting from the bottom up for us, I think it's really important, no matter any legal statute or law, might say. And this is going to give a great contribution. So this is my advice. And before all going into leave, I would like just for the speakers to stay a bit.
Oh,
Just
yeah,
5 minutes, just to,
thank you,
to ask something.
Very good, very good,
Thank
very
you.
good.
Just
Yeah,
that.
yeah. No, that's fine. Thank you so much. So let's look ahead. So we will have 2023, the next year will be a lot of ceremonies, a lot of nice events. And so with the CTF, I think it's going to be a kind of joint effort, ECLAS and IFLA Europe all together to achieve this CTF document. But let's check about the next exchange and the next platform. I would like to encourage you also that this working group we just started in Helsinki on the landscape architecture profession. We just started 2 weeks ago with the first meeting. Please join this working group. We are working on a very nice platform, exchange platform, so related to the mobility and the CTF development. So this is another nice step. Yes, and if we don't have more remarks, maybe Katerina, you would like to give the final word to everyone. Don't forget to wish a very nice Christmas time to everyone. Maybe. Yes, Katerina.
Yeah, okay, thank you. Although I thought I gave my final remark before, I don't want to just take up your time. Thank you all for being here. Really, I wish you Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, Happy Holidays on you. And yes, we're going to be in touch more often the next year because we need anyway experts and we need people to contribute to IFLA Europe since we're really having more our forces for the European Commission and the European Parliament. So definitely we will need people to embrace several working groups on that. So we will be in contact, but for the time being, have a nice holidays, I hope.
Excellent. Thank you
very
Katerina.
much. Just the speakers, 5 minutes.
Thank you for joining.
You want the speakers to stay? I heard.
Yes,
Okay.
please. Yes, please.
Okay.
Another 5 minutes. Thank you all. Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
This is for Gwendoline.
Bye-bye.